I'll read something from book 5 of my struggle. And all you really have to know is that the protagonist is very young. He's 19 years old. And he is a part of a creating writing course, which is a very big thing for him or for me when I was 19, because I wanted to be a writer. And this passage starts at the end of that year when he went there. After we had run through various dramatists and various drama traditions at the academy, the idea was that we should write something in the genre ourselves, as usual. I put off doing this until the evening before it was due. Then I plodded off to Werftet to sit there all night. We had a standing offer of a desk there if we needed an undisturbed place to write in the afternoon and evening. I had borrowed the keys and done it a couple of times. There was something about being alone in a common room that I liked, perhaps because there was nothing in it that reminded me of myself. I wasn't quite sure why. That was just how it was. Also this evening, when I let myself in and walked through the empty hallway, up the empty stairs, and into the empty rooms at the top. The others had already handed in their contributions. Photocopies of their work lay in piles on the table in the adjacent room. I found a typewriter, put on some coffee, stared at the reflection on the room in the black windows, as though it had been pulled out of the drifting waters of Vågen. It was 9 o'clock. I had decided I would sit there until I had finished, even if it took all night. I had no idea what to write. The coffee was ready. I drank a cup, smoked a cigarette, stared at the image of myself in the window, turned and looked at the bookshelves. They wouldn't have a photography book of scantily clad or naked woman here, would they? But they did have a book about the history of art. I pulled it down and leafed through. Some of the 16th and 17th century paintings were of naked women. Perhaps there was something I could use there. It was too big for me to fit into my trousers, and I didn't want to carry it under my arm, because even though the chance of someone appearing at this time was minimal, it wasn't impossible, and how would I explain lugging an art book down to the restroom? I put it in my bag and went down the spiral staircase and into the toilet. A picture by Raphael stood out at once. 2 women in front of a well, one naked, the other dressed. The naked one was strikingly beautiful. She was looking enigmatically to the side. Her small breasts were pert, a strip of cloth covered her nether region, but the thighs were visible, and I got a hard one. I flipped through, stared at a picture by Rubens, The Rape of Daughters of Leucippus, 1618. One of the 2 naked women was the red-haired, pale, freckly type, with a small chin and a full body. Then there was Botticelli's The Birth of Venus, 1485, where one breast was bared, and Titian, Venus of Urbino, 1538, in which the woman in the foreground had one hand resting between her legs while she gazed straight at the observer with a provocative, self-assured expression on her face.
There was a bit in the section you read, and I liked it particularly when I first read it, where you say, I couldn't reinvent the novel. And the shame about the idea of not reinventing a novel. And I was thinking that you have substantially now, or you've done something damaging and transformative to it. And I was trying to think how to identify it exactly. And in this volume, more than any others, I thought the project becomes clearer and clearer. And there's a lot of stuff in it about surface and depth. There's a lot of images of surface and depth. And I was thinking that all writers, when they're trying to change a novel, are trying to get rid of some version of what they consider to be surface to reach the depth. And sometimes the surface is something like polite society or middle-class life or nationhood. But in your version, I just wanted to read 2 lines. You say, what was consciousness other than the surface of the soul's ocean? Other than small, brightly coloured boats, floating plastic bottles and driftwood, waves and currents, whatever the day might bring, over a depth of several thousand meters. And I thought I couldn't remember a novelist who had thought that consciousness was the surface. Consciousness is the stuff that novels are made out of, usually. And I wondered if shame is the thing that you're bringing up from the depth, or is shame, that's the purpose of shame in these books, to try and get deeper.
Yeah. I'm a very intuitive writer, you know. And the freedom of this book was that I just could write. I could just, you know, do it the best I could, but I could just write. So there was no thought of reinventing or doing anything new at all. And I don't think I have, but I think I got kind of close to myself. And being so close to yourself, I don't know what shame is. My first novel I wrote, it is not a self-biographical novel, but it has lots of elements, of course, of me in it. And my editor wrote the text on the back, and he called it a monument of male shame.
Right.
And I said, what? What do you mean? I wasn't aware of the book was about shame, because I am so full of shame, and that was the way I thought the world was like, you know. But I'm very interested in shame, because that's the point where kind of the outer world and the social world enters the inner world and the inner self, and that's what's the stake in this book is the division between the inner and the outer, and the shame is the outer world, you know, being inside of you. Right. And I come from a kind of a shame culture, I think I can say. I've been talking with my mother, who is the same. She's very shameful and very proper. I mean, she is very decent. Mm-hmm. She's never done anything wrong in her life, and that's because she's so full of shame. Right. And she told me about her mother, and she was also very...
She come from a long line of shamed people.
It's a cultural thing. But I think shame is a good thing. Yeah. It is. It keeps you in place, and it keeps you, you know, you have to... It's a way of respecting other people somehow. It's a way of... You know, but too much of it is dangerous almost.